Hello and welcome back to the Smile and Save podcast, brought to you by Serve and Protect Credit Union. Today is episode 6, and in today's episode we're going to be talking all about budgeting your money with the 50-30-20 method. Now, by the end of today's episode, you should have a little bit of a better idea of how you can spend a little bit less money every month on unnecessary items and save a little bit more to help you reach your future financial goals. Now, a lot of today's episode links back or recaps on what we talked about in episode 4, which is all about financial resilience, improving your financial resilience, and dealing with financial emergencies. We talk a little bit there about why budgeting is useful and how it can improve your financial resilience. So if you haven't already, maybe after this episode, go back and have a listen to episode 4, as that will give you a much bigger idea of how to improve your financial resilience. And budgeting is obviously a small part of that. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you do follow or subscribe to the podcast to stay up to date with our latest episodes. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. So the first thing to look at is what actually is a budget plan and why is it useful. So a budget plan, very simply, just looks at where you spend your money every month, every week, whenever it is you decide to do your budget plans. Now, the easiest way to think about it is what happens if you don't do a budget plan? What if you don't review your spending regularly? Well, if currently you're not doing a budget plan every month or every week, then you probably don't really have a good understanding of where your money goes every month. You might get to the end of the month, just before you get paid, look at how much you've spent, and not really know where that money's gone. So a budget plan can just help you to understand where your money goes every month. It can help you to understand your spending habits, and by doing that, you can actually then look at where you can make changes, improve your spending habits, and save a little bit more money for the future. So that's the very basic element of what a budget plan is. Now, any good budget plan will look at your spending based on different categories, because that will help you to understand which areas of your spending need addressing. And the simplest way of doing this is splitting your spending into two categories known as needs and wants. Now, we'll talk about that in just a second, but just by splitting your spending into these two areas, you can prioritize the things that you need to spend your money on and the things that you maybe don't. So, the 50-30-20 budgeting method in particular, why is this such a useful method to use? Well, there's lots of different methods. This is just one that at Serve and Protect we really like, because we think it's really simple, it's easy to understand, and it's easy to make changes as you go from month to month. So the 50-30-20 budgeting method, again, basically splits your spending into needs and wants, but it also looks at saving for the future and reaching your future financial goals. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. Now, the 50-30-20 budgeting method helps you to make good decisions in terms of your spending in the short term in order to improve your finances in the future and for the long term. And it's a really simple way to visualize where you're spending your money, make small changes now to improve your future finances. So we talked a little bit about needs and wants. It's important that we know exactly what they are, and you could probably guess, but we'll just go through them. So when it comes to your spending, needs are the things that you need to buy in order to live a healthy life. So these are the must-have items that you need to spend money on every month. So, for example, we've got your accommodation, so your rent or your mortgage repayments. You've got things like food shopping. You've got transportation to or from work and the places that you need to go to. Your utility bills. All of these things that we have to buy and we can't really live without every single month. On the other hand, you've then got your wants. So these are the things that typically we like to buy, but we could live without them. So they're the nice to haves. And when it comes to your wants, these are very much dependent on what your interests are and what you like to do in your free time. But they can include things like entertainment subscriptions like Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, things like that. It could include going out to restaurants, having takeaways, like takeaway food, takeaway coffee, going on holiday, going out at the weekend, the things that we like to spend our money on, the things that we enjoy doing. So when we talk about needs and wants, needs are the things that we have to have and we can't really stop buying. The wants are the things that we like to buy and probably could cut down on if we needed to. So when it comes to budgeting and the 50-30-20 method in particular, we'll go through how to get started, how to do your first one, and then from there you can adjust it every month and make small improvements as you go. So when it comes to getting started with the 50-30-20 budgeting method, or any budgeting method for that matter, the first thing you'll need to do is decide if you're doing this for yourself as an individual or as a household, so with a partner or however many there are in your family. So the first thing you'll need to do is, once you've decided that, is to find out your monthly income after tax, so the money that you actually take home and receive every month. Again, this can be as an individual or a household. You'll need this later on, so just find this out, maybe note it down and refer back to it later on. So once you've done that, the next thing that you'll need to do is gather all of your bank statements or financial information. This could be printed, it could be on a website, it could be in your mobile banking app. Gather all of your spending information from last month so that you have all that information to hand and you can go through your spending habits from last month. So once you've figured out how much you earn every month and how much you spent last month, we're going to go through each item that you spent money on last month, so every purchase that you made, and we're going to categorize every single spend as either a need or a want. Now this might take a little bit of time, but it's a really useful and important thing to do, because once you've done this once, you kind of get an idea of where you're spending money subconsciously throughout the month. And then from there you can obviously make changes as you go. So once you've gone through and categorized every single spend as either a need or a want, you can then calculate the total amount of your spending that was on needs and the total amount of your spending that was on wants. So you should have a total for one and a total for the other. Now once you've found out these two totals, the next thing that you're going to do is find out what percentage of your monthly income was spent on needs and what percentage of your monthly income was spent on wants. So if we go for needs first, the way that you do this is take the total amount that you spent on needs divided by your total household income or your total individual income, however you're doing it, and multiply that by 100. So for example, if you spent £1,000 on needs last month and your total monthly income is £2,000, you're going to do £1,000 divided by £2,000 and then multiply that by 100. You're then going to do the same for your wants. So you should then have a percentage of how much you spent on your needs and how much you spent on your wants. Now that's how you go through and do your budget plan. Where 50-30-20 comes in is that in theory it's recommended that you would spend about 50% of your monthly income on your needs, so the things that we have to buy. You'd then spend about 30% of your household income on your wants, so the things that we enjoy buying but could live without. And in theory, in an ideal world, you'll have about 20% of your household income remaining to put towards your savings, maybe paying off debt early, anything that's going to help you out financially in the future. So the main thing here will be your savings, but you could be for things like paying off debt, maybe putting some money towards retirement, whatever it may be, but things that are going to set you up for the future. So once you've done this, you've gone through, you've figured out how much you're spending on your needs, your wants, and your savings, you should now have a percentage for each of these three. Now, you may be thinking 20% of my income saved towards the future, that's totally unrealistic. And that may be the case for a lot of people. You know, if you've got a house and you're paying mortgage or rent, you maybe got kids, you got to pay for them and everything that they need. 20% of your income saved might not be realistic, and that's absolutely fine. This method is just a guide. Everyone's situation is going to be completely different. There may be things that you can do to improve how much you can save, but 20% isn't the golden number. It's not like you get to 20% of your income saved every month and you're set for the future. But what you can do is you can make small changes here and there. So you can't necessarily change your needs. You can't just stop paying your mortgage or stop driving to work. But what you can do is change your wants. And the way that you can picture this is that your wants and your savings for the future are a little bit like a seesaw. So by spending a little bit less in your wants every month, you might be able to save a little bit more for the future. And vice versa, if you start spending more on your wants, then you'll be saving less for the future. Now, on the other hand, for some people, saving 20% is going to be really easy. If you're, say, living with your parents, don't have kids, don't have too many bills that you need to pay, and a lot of your income is disposable, you could probably save a lot more than 20%. So again, that 20% number is not a golden figure. It's not like you hit that and your finances are going to be set. It's just a guide, and it's about finding a balance between your wants and your savings. Now, if you're someone that is spending a lot on wants and isn't saving too much for the future, it's a really good idea to go through your wants and highlight anything that you maybe regret buying from last month, or maybe a couple of things that you spent a little bit too much money on that you'd like to cut down on. So a couple of examples of things that you might be spending a little bit too much on when it comes to your wants. The first one, takeaway coffee. So in the UK, the average takeaway coffee is about £3.40. And if you were to have, say, 3 per week, over the course of a year, that would be £530 that you're spending on takeaway coffee. So a quick one, can you maybe buy one less coffee a week and save a little bit more money? Maybe bring in a flask from home. There's ways that you can cut that down and save a little bit more. Now, a lot of us all need coffee in the morning or on our lunch break, so that's fine. And it's not about cutting these things out. It's just about reducing them and trying to save a little bit where we can. Another example is alcohol. So the average cost of a pint of lager in the UK is about £4.58, and the average Brit actually drinks 4 pints of lager a week on average. So over the course of a year, that's £952 that's gone. So again, is there a way that you could cut down on this? It's not about cutting out the fun from your life, it's just about finding ways to cut back again and just save a little bit more money where you can. There's probably other things that you might be spending too much on, maybe meal deals, smoking or vaping, whatever it may be, takeaway food. It's just about finding those areas that are particular to you that maybe you're spending a little bit too much on, and finding ways to cut back where you can. Any savings that you can make to your wants can go towards your future and reaching those savings goals and your financial goals that you have for yourself in the future. So once you've sat down and done your first 50-30-20 budget plan, it's a really good idea to go back next month and review your spending again and just see how your spending habits have changed. If you highlighted a couple of things in your wants that you wanted to cut back on, did you actually manage to do that this month? Or do you need to work a little bit harder on saving money in some of those areas? Now, once after a couple of months, maybe you've got to a point where you're comfortable, you understand your spending habits a little bit more, you've found ways of cutting back and saving more for the future, you can then break down your needs and your wants into subcategories to find new ways to cut down. So rather than just looking at your wants as a category, you can maybe break that down into entertainment, into things like going on holiday, takeaway food, and then you can look at each of these categories and find new ways to cut down and save a little bit more for the future. Now, hopefully by doing this for a couple of months, reviewing your spending habits and finding changes where you can, you should be able to save more for the future and ultimately reach your savings goals a lot sooner. The more you can save every month, the quicker your savings balances are going to build up, and you're going to earn interest on that money as well. So the more you can save every month, the more that's going to benefit you for the future. But make sure you're not cutting out all the fun from your life, just cutting back where you can. Now, this is just one budgeting method, the 50-30-20 method. There are lots more methods out there. Pay yourself first, zero-based budget. There's loads of different ones to look at. So if you give 50-30-20 a try and it doesn't work for you, there's going to be lots more budgeting methods that may be more suitable to your individual needs. And we will cover more budgeting methods in future episodes. So if you haven't already, Make sure you do follow or subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to stay up to date and get our latest episodes as they come out. So that is a fairly quick run through of the 50-30-20 budgeting method and getting started with budgeting in general. Hopefully you found this useful. Hopefully you've now got a couple of ways that you can maybe save a little bit more money for the future, reach those savings goals a lot sooner. Thank you so much for listening. Again, make sure you do follow or subscribe to the podcast to stay up to date with our latest episodes as they come out. And we look forward to welcoming you back to our next episode. Thanks so much for listening and have a great day.